Okay, so to start with, we're going to just pop out all of the pieces out of their little laser cut grooves. So we'll pop the door out of the frame of the door, and then you have a little rectangle block with a lot of smaller laser cut pieces, and we need to pop out all of these as well. Make sure that you are keeping all of the pieces. Don't get rid of any of them. They're all very important. You will see here with these ones, there's a little rectangle. It looks like it's just there to space the two pieces that you popped out before that, but that is an important piece that we're going to use later, so don't throw these away. Okay, so now that we have popped out all of our pieces, now we're going to start sanding all of them. This is because if you can see on each piece, the laser cutter, when it cuts the pieces, leaves a bit of a resin residue on the pieces, which for the pieces that need to swing or to slide, that's going to cause a bit of sticking. So we're just going to sand, especially on the inside of the frame. That's quite important. The outside of the safe door, and then especially around the corners of the inside of the frame. We are probably going to have to sand a little bit extra once we've built the door and we see where it's sticking. But yeah, the important places are the inside of the corners of the frame and then the outside corners of the door. We're now going to sand all of the other pieces as well. So on all of the flat sides of all these pieces, we need to just sand and try and get rid of that residue, and then turn the pieces flat on their side as well and sand the tops and the bottoms there as well, especially these little bolt arms. These are important. They need to be as smooth as possible because that is going to be part of our locking mechanism for the door. So the smoother the pieces are, the less they stick, the better the safe door will be able to open and close. Now we're going to fold our sandpaper in half, and then we're going to lightly sand the insides of the teeth of the locking arms and of the gear. Do not be too rough with this because otherwise you might end up breaking the little teeth, but we do want to try and sand off some of that resin residue so that the bolt arms and the gear will move smoother. Now we're just going to do the same thing in the little grooves of the gear. So we're just going to do it on both sides of each tooth, very gently again, because we don't want to break it, but just to make the locking mechanism move a lot smoother. Okay, so now we're going to start with gluing our first piece. So we're going to take the circle and the little handle, and we're going to glue those together to form our handle for our door. So we're just going to put glue onto all of the edges that are going to stick to the circular handle. Don't put too much, because otherwise it will squirt out, and then we'll have to do quite a bit of cleaning up. But yeah, we just place the handle inside the little grooves, and then we can just clean up the edges a little bit from excess glue. This will be important to do with a lot of the pieces that we glue in, to make sure that everything moves smoothly. Okay, now we're going to take one of our lollipop sticks, and we're going to cut 3 little 1 centimeter pieces. You can use a ruler to do this. I'm using the board underneath me because it has 1 centimeter markings. So to cut the lollipop stick, we're just going to take our craft knife. Please be careful here. And then you're just going to roll your craft knife along the stick to cut on all the sides. Take your time, don't rush. And then we're going to just cut our 3 little pieces here. Okay, so now we're just going to glue one of our first little lollipop axles into the door. So we're just going to put glue around the outside of the bottom half of our lollipop axle. Again, don't use too much glue. And then we're going to stick it into our middle slot. Just make sure that the lollipop stick is sticking out straight at a right angle, and then we're going to do the same with our second little lollipop axle to go into the second slot in our door handle. Just smooth out the extra glue. This also helps to seal it on the top as well. And then if you want to clean up any excess glue from earlier, you can do that too. And then we're just going to set this aside and leave it to dry for a little bit. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to start on our locking mechanism of our door. So we're going to just take all of our pieces to start with and put them into their little grooves and their slots. Just pay attention to the orientation of the locking arms. We don't want to build our door upside down. So we're just going to slot all of our pieces into place to start with so that we can test how smoothly our locking mechanism works. You'll see here, this is where we use our final lollipop axle. And then when you slot the gear in, make sure you've moved the bolt arms all the way up so that the gear slots into the correct place and everything is aligned. So you can see I was moving the the locking arms up and down there just to check if there was any sticking. anywhere where it got stuck a little bit. And then if there is anything like that, then you can take it apart again and just sand the areas that are getting stuck, making sure that everything is completely smooth. And then once you are happy with that, you can put it back in, test again, and you can keep doing this until you are happy with how smooth your locking mechanism is moving. Okay, so now that everything is as you like it, you can take it apart again, and now we're going to glue all of the pieces into place. Remember to wipe away excess glue as you are going so that it doesn't dry. The excess glue, if it dries in place, is going to form little bumps that might prevent our locking mechanism from moving as smoothly as we want it to. Pay attention to where the glue is being put here, so we're just going to put it on the two little outside edges and nowhere else, so that no glue is going to prevent our bolt arms from sliding. Okay, so now that we've wiped the excess glue away and made sure that there's nothing in the way, we can slot our bolt arms into place. And we can then glue in our last two blocks. So now we're going to glue in our little lollipop axle for the gear. Again, we're just putting a little bit of glue around the outside of the bottom half of the axle. Make sure not to put too much, because if you stick it in here, it might ooze glue out onto the other pieces. And then again, again, we're just going to make sure to wipe away any excess glue. And then we're going to just leave it to dry. Once your pieces have dried to the touch and they're no longer tacky, we can slot our gear into place. Again, make sure the bolt arms are moved all the way up when you slot your gear into place. And now, to make sure that the gear doesn't fall off, we're just going to take our little circle piece and put some glue on the inside and then slot it over the top of the lollipop axle. Don't use too much glue. Again, we don't want it to ooze down onto the gear and then stop it from moving. So we're just going to put that onto the top of our lollipop axle. Don't push it all the way down, just enough to stop the gear from falling off and give it space to move. Okay, so now that everything is dry, we can now slot our door handle into place. So you'll see that the two lollipop sticks that we glued in earlier slot into a circular slot and a little groove. And now we're going to take our locking piece that attaches to the handle. This is what's going to keep our door locked or allow it to open. And you're going to stick it over the top of those two lollipop sticks. Make sure that it is flush against the top of the lollipop sticks, and then we're going to just put some glue over the top here, making sure that it doesn't ooze down, and then we'll wipe away the excess and leave it to dry. Okay, so now we're going to be working on our electromagnet assembly. So to start with, we'll take a 10 by 20 millimeter piece of cardboard and we're going to cut a 12 millimeter strip off the end with a sharp craft knife. Make sure your craft knife is sharp because we don't want to crush the little ridges or flutes of the cardboard, as this is what makes it strong. Okay, so now take the piece that you just cut, and now we're going to measure two lines. Our first line is going to be at 25 millimeters, and the second line is going to be at 40 millimeters. Take your craft knife again, and at the 40 millimeter mark, we're going to cut all the way through the cardboard. And then at the 25 millimeter mark, we're going to just carefully cut through the top layer of the cardboard and not the bottom. Take your time with this. Make sure that you're just making a very shallow cut so that we can fold our cardboard piece like so. And now we're just going to glue that little shorter piece to the back of the longer piece as we bend it over. Again, you can wipe away any excess glue so that our pieces remain as clean as possible. just makes sure that everything works a lot easier. Okay, so now that our piece has dried a little bit, we are going to measure 5 millimeters in from the bottom or the right edge of our piece, and then 6 millimeters in from the side edge. Basically, we're just finding the middle of this little block. And then we're going to do the same thing on the back of this cardboard piece. Then please be careful with this part, but we're going to take our craft knife and then we're going to make a hole all the way through the cardboard by twisting the craft knife. So we'll work from both sides so that the two holes meet in the middle. Okay, now we're going to take one of our bolts or our screws, we're going to put a washer onto it, and then we're going to stick it through the hole that we just made. Make sure that the head of your screw is on the long flat side of our piece of cardboard, and then just make sure that you position your screw so that there is a gap of about 5 millimeters between the screw head and the washer and the edge of the cardboard. We can now take our little nut and then twist it onto the end and tighten it loosely. Okay, now we'll take our copper wire and we're going to unwind about 30 centimeters of it. Now we're going to run this wire through the cardboard flute that is just after the screw. We're going to pull it all the way through. This is to attach to our battery later. And now we're going to take the rest of the copper wire. Make sure that your washer is flush against the screw head and not against the cardboard. And we're now going to very tightly and evenly wrap the remainder of our copper wire back and forth along our screw length. It is important that the windings are as tight and as even as possible, because the more tight and even the windings, the stronger our electromagnet will be. Okay, and then we're going to make sure that we leave about 30 centimeters at the end again, the same as the length that we left at the beginning, and then you can bring those two pieces together at the back of our cardboard piece and twist them to stop your coils from unwinding off of your screw. And this is the first part of our electromagnet assembly. Now take the rest of that piece of cardboard that you cut earlier, and we're going to carefully pull off the top strip of the cardboard to expose two ridges or flutes. We're then going to just cut these 2 flutes loose. Make sure you don't lose one of them. We're going to use the first one now, and then the second one we will use at a later stage. Take your remaining screw and we're going to stick it through one of these flutes, and then take our nut and tighten it again onto the end. Now we're going to cut a piece of cardboard to mount the second screw onto. So we're going to measure 5 millimeters for the width. And then our length will be about 2 flutes wide. Okay, so now that we've got our little piece, we're going to take some glue, and then we're going to mount our piece with our screw in it onto this piece over here. Again, we'll just give it a little bit of time to dry before we carry on. Okay, so now that our pieces have dried to the touch, we are now going to glue our electromagnet assembly onto our safe door. So first we'll put a little bit of glue onto that screw that we just finished, and we're going to glue this onto the bottom locking arm or bolt arm. Make sure that you don't get any glue on the teeth of the bolt arm or onto the teeth of the gear, and then just leave it to dry for a little bit. Once that has dried to the touch, so you should be able to push on the screw and it doesn't move or fall off. The glue is dry. We're now going to glue on our electromagnet. So we're going to just put on a good amount of glue because this needs to be quite strongly attached to the handle. And then we need to carefully position it so that the 2 screw heads are touching each other. Now make sure that you've pushed the bolt arms all the way down before you do this so that you can close that handle locking part fully, and then we're going to glue on the electromagnet, making sure that its screw head is aligned with the other screw head and they are touching each other, and then we'll just leave it to dry. Okay, so now we are going to finish the body of the safe. So we're going to take our 2 little semicircle wooden pieces. You'll see here we're just going to put a little bit of glue in each corner. And these are going to be the hinges of our door, so we're just going to glue them in like that and do the same for the other one. And now you'll remember the extra flute that we cut earlier. We're now going to use this as a door stopper to keep our door from swinging to the inside of the safe when we close it. Now make sure that you are leaving enough space on the edge of the frame so that when we glue the walls in, we will be able to fit the wall into that space. So don't stick the piece too close to the edge of the frame. Okay, now that our door frame is dry, we can place our door inside of the frame. You might need to just move your bolt arms and your locking mechanism a little bit to make sure that it fits in. And you'll see there that our little hinges are aligned on the opposite side of the locking mechanism. Now take 4 clips or pegs if you have and just clip it so that the door stays inside of the frame for this next part. Okay, so now we're going to take one of our lollipop sticks again and we're going to cut it in half. We're going to use the same method we used earlier where we just roll the craft knife along the stick until we can cut it into half. These are now going to be part of our hinges, so we're just going to slot them in to the 2 semicircles that we glued earlier. Now we don't want it to be sticking out like that. Remember, we have some safe walls that we have to glue into place later. So make sure that the lollipop stick is flush with the top of the wooden hinges. Now we're going to use a second lollipop stick. We're not going to glue this one in place, but this is just to align our 2 hinge sticks to make sure that they are going to give us a smooth hinge. So we want them to be completely straight and in line with each other. So we're going to take some glue and we're going to glue along the sides. You can be quite generous here because the hinge is going to take the most strain, and so we want it to be as secure as possible. So once you've put a good amount of glue on, then we just realign the 2 sticks using our second lollipop stick as a guide, and then allow that to dry. And once it has dried a little bit and it is in line, you can remove the second lollipop stick and glue on the outside as well. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to dry completely, we can now arrange the remaining cardboard pieces around the back wooden part of your safe. You'll see that the cardboard pieces are a bit bigger than what they need to be, so you're going to have to cut them down to size to match the straight parts of the back of the safe. So the longer side is going to be about 16 centimeters. And the shorter side is going to be about 6.5 centimeters. Now make sure that when you turn the side pieces up, you can see through the flutes, because that is the strongest direction of the cardboard. So if we've made sure that the cardboard's in the correct orientation, we can mark off our 6.5 centimeters. same for the second smaller piece of cardboard. Again, we're making sure we can see through the flutes. And now for the longer piece of cardboard. Remember we said it is about 16 centimeters. So we'll make our mark at 16 centimeters and draw a line across. We'll do the same for the second larger piece of cardboard as well. Now take your sharp craft knife and we're just going to cut each of these pieces down to size. Keep the offcuts of the cardboard because we can use them later if we want to do some extra modifications to our safe at the end. Okay, so now you can see that our pieces are the correct size. Now take your single fluted sheet of cardboard and count the number of ridges along the side, divide that number by 4, and then we're going to cut this piece into 4 equal-sized parts by using the ridges as guides. If there are a few extra leftover ridges, that is okay. And now we will just cut our 4 equal-sized pieces and put them to the side with the rest of our pieces for the body of the safe. Okay, now back to our safe door. It should be dry by now. Even if it's not completely dry, that's okay. We're going to take the copper wires of the end of our electromagnet, and we're going to take a craft knife and very carefully scrape off the thin layer of plastic insulation. You'll see a white powder coming off as you scrape. Be careful not to cut yourself or to cut the wire as you are scraping. It's just a gentle scraping to get the insulation off so that we can use these wires and attach them to our switch and battery. Okay, now we're going to take our reed switch and we'll take one of the wires from the electromagnet, it doesn't matter which one, and we're going to wrap the part that we've now exposed and removed the insulation from, we'll wrap that around one leg of the reed switch. Be careful here not to bend the legs of your reed switch as they might break, and then you will not be able to use the reed switch. Okay, so now we're going to create a little holder for our reed switch about 3 flutes wide. This is just from your leftover pieces of cardboard, so the measurements in terms of the length don't have to be exact, just about the length of your reed switch. So this will be for mounting the reed switch onto the inside of your safe. So we'll take our reed switch and we're going to push it through the middle flute until the unattached side of the reed switch sticks out on the other side. So now we're going to connect the battery negative wire, which is the black cable, to this other side of the reed switch. Again, you want to wrap it tightly, but you do not want to break the leg of the reed switch, so just be quite careful. You can then slide your reed switch back into its mounting. And then we will attach the other end of our electromagnet wire to the positive cable of the battery holder, which is the red wire. Okay, so once your safe door is completely dry, you can remove the clips or pegs, and we're now going to test how easily our door opens and closes. So you'll open the locking mechanism and then just swing your door on its hinges. You'll see it's getting stuck a little bit there. So we're just going to open it up and sand again around all the outside edges until our door can open and close smoothly. Okay, so our door is opening and closing smoothly now. You're going to need to grab a friend for this next part. So we're going to lift our door up, and then we're going to place one of our larger pieces of cardboard at the bottom. We'll then take the back of the safe, place it alongside, and then wedge in the other large piece of cardboard at the top. You will then need to hold this quite tightly, and then your friend will help you by putting an elastic band around the one side. We'll then turn it around and do the same on the other side to keep all the pieces together. Okay, now that we've got everything in place, we can move our pieces to be in the correct place. So make sure that each piece is in the middle of the sides of the safe door. And we're now going to glue them into position. So what we're going to do is push each side down slightly to expose the top of the wooden part of the safe, the back or the front, and then we're going to glue along that exposed piece of wood. fill the gap with glue, and then we'll slide up our piece until it's flush with the top of the safe wall again, and then just smooth out the glue. This will help to seal it at the top. We're then going to do the same with the other side. And then once that has dried a little bit, you can turn it over and do the bottom the same way. Okay, so now that that is dry to the touch, we can move our elastic bands a little bit more towards the edges. We're just doing this so that we're holding the walls quite tightly together, so that when we glue in our side pieces, we can wedge them in nicely. So we're now going to turn it onto its side. We'll take out one of our smaller pieces of cardboard that we cut earlier, and we're just going to glue along each of the shorter sides. Wedge it into place. Again, make sure that it is in the middle of the two wooden walls of the safe, and we can smooth out the glue again. You can turn it around, and we're going to do the same with the final piece of cardboard. To just wedge it into place and smooth out where the glue has oozed out a little bit. We can now leave it to dry. So once it is completely dry, we can remove our elastic bands. And you now want to make sure that your safe door is open before continuing with this next part. So you can just use your fingers through the little gaps that are left in the side and just open the locking mechanism before we continue. Okay, so now we're going to take our 4 pieces of ridged cardboard and we're going to bend them slightly, so in the direction of the ridges, to form some semicircles, and we'll do the same with all 4 pieces. Okay, so now we're going to take our glue and we're just going to put a little bit on each side of the inside of these ridged pieces. And then we're going to glue it over the corner, making sure that it closes the gap completely between the top and side pieces of cardboard. You'll need to hold it in place for a few seconds just to make sure that the glue binds, and then once it is in place, you can move on to the next one. Again, we can smooth out the glue. This helps to seal it and also to make it look neat. Now we're just going to do the same thing with the other 3 pieces of cardboard. So we can just leave it to dry for a little bit. Okay, so now our safe is basically complete except for a few final steps. First of all, let's test our electromagnet. So as you can see, we've got our electromagnet over here, and then the wires are attached to the reed switch and the battery holder. And we have our little magnet over here. So a reed switch is a magnetic switch that closes when a magnet is placed near it. So then it completes the circuit. The magnet is like our safe key. When the switch is closed, current flows from the battery through to our electromagnet around the coils, and it produces a magnetic field in this screw, basically turning our screw into its own magnet. It can then attract the second screw, pulling it upwards as we turn our handle, like that, and this will be pulled upwards, and then unlocking the door. If we remove the magnet from the reed switch, the switch will open, breaking the circuit, and therefore our electromagnet loses its current and its magnetic field, and so it cannot attract the second screw, and so the safe door will remain closed. So let's just test that our electromagnet is working. So first we'll just put our battery into the battery holder like that, and then we will take our little magnet and put it onto the reed switch. You will see that it magnetizes to the reed switch, and you will hear a little click as it moves across. So once it's in position, we can test and see that our electromagnet is in fact working. So you can see here that our electromagnet has been magnetized, and it is magnetizing the second screw and lifting the arms of our door to unlock the door. Once we are happy that our electromagnet is working properly, we can now decide where we want to place our secret reed switch on the inside of our safe. So I'm going to just remove the magnet, and I'm going to place mine on the roof of the safe, right over here. But you can choose where you want to place yours. Just make sure it is not on the bottom of the safe, because we're going to be using the magnet from the outside to open the safe, and if it is standing, you won't be able to put your magnet onto the bottom of the safe. So let us glue our reed switch into place. Now remember where you have glued your reed switch, because if you don't remember, you won't be able to open your safe from the outside. This is the location of your hidden key, basically. Okay, so now that that is glued into position, our battery is plugged in. Just make sure that that still is the case, and then you can close and lock your safe. Okay, so I know that my reed switch is somewhere over here, and that is now going to be my secret key to be able to unlock my safe. So you can see right now, if I turn the handle, my safe is not going to open. But if I take my magnet and I now place it where my reed switch is, then you should hear a click, and then you should be able to open your safe door. Now, if you have forgotten where you have placed your reed switch, if you have closed your safe and it is a bit stuck, or if your battery has died inside, which means that the electromagnet will stop working, there are other ways that we can kind of cheat the system to open the safe from the outside. Remember, this isn't a perfect system. So what I'm going to do is just close and lock this safe. So you'll see now I can't open it anymore. And the first way that we can do this is to turn our safe upside down. So if you can see here on the handle, you've got a white dot facing the top. That means that this is the top of your safe. So what we're going to do is we're just going to turn the safe upside down. And then if you remember, when we built the locking mechanism, we had two sliding arms, one of which we glued a screw onto. Now that screw acts as a weight, and so the locking mechanism isn't balanced. So we can use gravity to try and open the safe from the outside. So if we tap on the top and the sides of our safe, then gravity will pull that heavier locking arm down because of the screw, and we'll be able to unlock the safe. So if you just give it a bit of a tap from the top and from the sides, and remember that your handle must be in the open position, because if it is in the closed position, you will be blocking the locking arms from moving. So we put it into the open position here, tap. We've opened our safe from the outside. Now, another method that we can use if the safe is stuck and even tapping and banging it is not going to open it, you can see here that we've got our two locking arms like this. And so if you look from the front here, you'll see each arm is aligned in between these little blocks where we put in the guiders. So what you can do is from the bottom insert a pin or something like that that is in line with this locking mechanism, and then you can use the pin to push the arm up, and then that way unlock your safe from the outside. Now, if you were paying attention when we were taking all of the pieces out at the beginning, you'll realize there's one piece that we haven't used yet, which is this push button. So this is there in case you break your reed switch or it has stopped working. We can use this instead. So it won't be as secret as the reed switch because we will have to attach it onto the outside of the safe, but we can still use it the same way that we would use a reed switch. So the way that we wired our reed switch, with one of the wires going towards the electromagnet and the other wire attaching to the battery, is the same way that we will then wire this push button. You would then put the push button on the outside. You could mount it over here, you could mount it at the back, somewhere secret if you want to, with the little legs going through the cardboard to the inside so that the wires can attach. And then you will use the push button as your switch to open the safe. So remember that with the magnet and the reed switch, as long as the magnet is on the reed switch, the switch is closed, and so the current is flowing and you have an electromagnet. With the push button, it will be a little bit different. You will have to keep the button pushed down to keep the current flowing. So if you let the button go, then the switch is open, the current won't flow and your electromagnet won't work. So if you're going to be using the push button, just remember that you will need to keep holding your push button in while you are trying to open your safe. Now lastly, you'll see that you have some leftover pieces of cardboard that we didn't get to use. So if you would like to build a housing for your battery inside of the safe, you could even use the pieces of cardboard to build compartments inside of your safe to hold different things. Really, the limit is your imagination, so the most important thing at the end of this is to have fun.